Alright folks, it is Matthew. We are back, and we're going to start case number 9, of the Sahara region. This is the third of 6. Thanks to these 3, Esther, Paulo, Roberto, and Enzo. Killing Spring. We've been trudging through this desert for ages, Matthew. I'm starting to think we'll never find the town Ingrid told us about. Alright, fine. We might as well recap while we walk. So we know there's a protest movement in the town to overthrow the Sultan. He's a dictator who's caused misery and poverty for his people. Ingrid thinks things could get ugly if the Sultan decides to crack down on the protesters. But she also believes that such an atmosphere of dissent could be the perfect place for the chief's killer, the Sword, to stir up trouble. I agree that it's a shaky lead, Matthew, but for the moment, it's all that we... Wait, what's that in the distance, Matthew? It's an oasis. Quick, let's go and have a look around. When will I be doing a case in elite mode in a Pacific Bay? I have not thought about that, and I have not made my final decision on that. Hot air balloon. Oh, there's... I think that's the Sultan. No swimming. Heart locket. Energy, thank you. It's the 16th already. Darn it, that man. He's dead. You gotta be kidding me, Matthew. Why is it that everywhere we go, we find a dead body? I know we can't turn a blind eye to this. We'll have to investigate. But if we're lucky, this man's death might be linked to the Sword. If you ask me, it looks like our victim was killed by our average bullet wound. But we better send his body to Angela to be sure. What else did you pick up, Matthew? Good eye. This locket has a picture of our victim on it. And look, there's some faded writing on the other side. I'll grab your dusting kit. And what are those reeds for? Oh, you reckon there's something hidden among them? Better get looking then. Okay, I'll grab a bunch of stars, I'll be right back. Okay, I'll examine the bunch of reeds first, because I think that won't get me to the next crime scene. Eight more energy. What was hidden among those reeds you picked up at the crime scene, Matthew? Some kind of hook? And it's covered in blood. The killer won't get off the hook with you on the case, Matthew. Let's get this hook to Lars. Okay, 3 hours. Heart locket now. Let's examine that. Fatima and Hamza. Good job on the victim's locket you found at the crime scene, Matthew. The inscription reads Fatima and Hamza. So our victim was called Hamza. That name does sound familiar, Matthew. Let me look it up online. That's it. Hamza Bousefi. He was the leader of that protest movement we came here to investigate. You're right. The woman on the locket must be his wife. We better go break the news to Fatima about her husband. About her husband's murder? Hello, Fatima. I'm afraid Sheriff Matthew is here to inform you that your husband has been murdered. My husband's dead? But he was my hero. He was the people's hero. I understand this is difficult for you, Mrs. Busefi, but we need to know if there's anyone who might have wanted to hurt Hamza. There was hardly a shortage of people who wanted him gone. Hamza was so committed to helping the people overthrow the Sultan, always ready to do the right thing, despite the risks. He knew his life was in danger. The Sultan doesn't tolerate any sign of dissent. That's how he manages to keep his grip on power. Hamza said he didn't even feel safe at the protest square, where all the protesters have been camping out. And now he's gone. It must be tough fighting for what you believe in, but knowing you're risking your life and the safety of the ones you love. Yeah, I'd also like to have a word with this Sultan we keep hearing about, but we'll need more than a hunch to be granted an interview. You're right. What we can do is check out the protest square that Fatima mentioned. Let's go. Okay. Protest sign. Oh, microphone. Wolf News. Cat, roses, fire hydrant, and a helicopter. This place is totally empty, Matthew. Looks like they finally managed to force the protesters out. And I wonder how much it has to do with their leader being dead. Anyway, what did you find? A mic? Oh man, it's from Wolf News. Wolf News has the most disreputable journalists around. The organization's TV station and newspaper just report whatever sells, no matter whether it's ethical or even true. I suppose you better scratch the mic for prints. You also picked up a protest sign? Right, there are some leaves on it. I'll grab the vacuum so you can collect a sample. Gonna grab a few stars, I'll be back. Alright folks, I got a few stars, I'm up to 10. Let's examine the microphone. Perfect. Only took me 1 second. You've uncovered the fingerprints on that Wolf News mic we found at the protest square. Come on, let's look for a match in the database. Okay. Ugh. Just got the 9 in time. Thomas Cox. Okay. The fingerprints on the Wolf News mic you found at the protest square are a match for Thomas Cox? Dang. Oh, I had a few run-ins with him when I was a journalist, Matthew. Thomas has been working for Wolf News for years. Let's just say that our methods differ. I don't relish the idea, but I guess we'd better talk to Thomas, Matthew. About his presence on the square. Long time no see, Thomas. You're here to cover the protest movement? Darn straight I am. You know me, Carmen. I go where the stories are. And your story wouldn't happen to concern the death of a certain Hamza Busefi, would it? Come on, Carmen. You know I wouldn't leak any details of a story before it's been broadcast. That's your problem, Thomas. You and Wolf News have never understood that some things are more important than a story. We're investigating a murder here. Get over yourself, Carmen. Just because you won the Pulitzer doesn't make you any better than... Just tell us what you know about Hamza before Sheriff Matthew arrests you for obstruction. Fine. I had an interview lined up with Hamza to discuss the protests against the Sultan. I kinda admired the guy. I mean, he was fighting for good old US-style liberty. Sheriff Matthew is the one asking the questions now, so stick around, Thomas. Okay, protest sign now. Perfect. Down with the Sultan, something with freedom. We want freedom. Good going, Matthew. You grabbed a sample of those leaves on the sign you found at the protest square. Let's get it to Lars and hope the results are useful. Nine hours. I'm gonna let at least these two run their courses. Maybe I'll speed up the autopsy, but I don't know yet. So for now, this is Matthew. See you then. Alright folks, we're back. And let's get the results of the bloody hook. I am gonna speed up the autopsy, but maybe a little later. Hey guys, I checked with Angela and she's confirmed that the blood on the hook is the victim's. But I also found traces of flour, sugar, and other substances on the hook. All the ingredients you need to make dough ball bait. Dough ball what? Dough ball bait is commonly used by fishermen to attract fish such as carp. Are you saying that the killer fished after killing the victim? Well, they might have just got blood on the hook afterwards and then tried to get rid of it. Right, so now we know that our killer goes fishing. Well, they won't be able to stop you from reeling them in, Matthew.
In conversation with my dermatologist about Humira. He explained that Humira works inside my body to target and help block a specific source of inflammation that contributes to my symptoms. In clinical trials, most adults saw 75% skin clearance, and the majority were clear or almost clear in just 4 months.
And the leaves? Lars, what did you find out about those leaves Matthew collected from the sign at the protest square? Oh, I haven't had much time to look at them. I've been busy working on something great. Just tell us what you found. Fine. The leaves you sent me are a blend of tea only sold in the United Kingdom. And guess what? I found traces of DNA from a certain Benjamin Scott mixed in with the leaves. Benjamin? That kid we met out in the desert, Matthew? What on earth was he doing at the protest square? I wonder what trouble Benjamin's gotten himself into now. We better go check up on him, Matthew.
Some exclusive A1 sauce on good steak. I hope those people don't get angry. Arby's, we have the meat.
About his presence on the square. Benjamin, what are you doing alone in a place like this? You do realize how dangerous the situation is out here, right? I just wanted to see some of the action, Sheriff Matthew. The people are fighting for change, and I want to be part of that. Change sometimes comes at a price, though, Benjamin. We found the protest leader murdered. Hamza's dead? That sucks. I really respected him for trying to overthrow the Sultan. That stupid guy makes all his money trading with the West and then spends it on fancy cars and gold toilets. Benjamin, you do realize the people here are protesting about more than just gold toilets, right? Well, whatever. The point is, the Sultan sucks, the West sucks, and the Bureau sucks. Gosh, you're still just a kid, aren't you? Stay out of trouble, Benjamin.
Only at Burger King.
These are Jeffrey Bronson's dental records. The 2 cavities and the missing base.
Actually, I think I'll speed it up right now.
How did
Probably a broken.
Hello, Matthew. I see we're going back to basics with this murder. As you might have guessed, the victim was killed by a gunshot wound to the back of the head.
kids started screaming?
Based on the size and depth of the wound, I've ascertained that the murder weapon which you're looking for is a service rifle, the kind used by armies worldwide. There was something else of interest on the body, though. I found grains of couscous in only one place, just by the victim's carotid artery in his neck. My hypothesis is that the killer checked your victim's pulse, leaving the couscous grains behind. Great work, Angela. So now we know we're looking for a killer who eats couscous. Well, they won't be enjoying any couscous once you've put them in prison, Matthew.
Thank you, Detective. Guest book's right here. Please sign in before the service. She writes her name, and the pen transmits everything she writes.
This is a mess, Matthew. We've learned nothing about the sword, and any of our suspects could have killed Hamza. I trust Thomas about as far as I could throw him. Wolf News isn't the most reputable organization around. And Benjamin's got me baffled. I understand wanting to be where the action is, but surely he realizes how dangerous it is out here. Everything seems to hinge on the Sultan, but we'll never be able to talk to him unless... Sheriff Matthew, Sultan Mahmud I demands to speak to you at his palace, immediately.
Copy that.
I got another one. Avery Shaw.
Get to Chapter 2 next time. Alright folks, it is Matthew. We are back. Let's start Chapter 2 of World Edition Case 9, Killing Spring, Criminal Case. This is a mess, Matthew. There's no shortage of suspects, given that our victim was leading a protest movement. Everything seems to hinge on the Sultan that the victim was protesting against, but we'll never be able to talk to him unless... Sheriff Matthew, Sultan Mahmud I demands to speak to you at his palace, immediately. Some manners wouldn't hurt. You're lucky we wanted to see the Sultan anyway. Let's see what the Sultan has to say for himself, Matthew, and if we're lucky, we might be able to grab some clues at his palace.
Sure, both ways before crossing. You think finding Jeffrey's body will prove who killed him?
We're looking for evidence. We're re-interviewing everyone.
Oh no, this is suspect number 4.
This huge stash of baseball cards.
I'm gonna go with the palace entrance first.
Did you call me here? He didn't look like a pervert.
You didn't think that he'd hurt Jeffrey.
Here we go.
Is that why it took you so long to go to the police and tell them that you saw them together that day?
Everybody was playing Deacon.
Oh,
Jeffrey's just
phone.
I didn't want him to blame me.
Oh, gold spoon, that's... Oh, I see something on there.
My parents yelled at me because I was the last person to see Jeffrey alive. I was taking him babysitting, so I folks could go out to dinner like they did every Saturday. When I was 13, I wanted to go to parties. I was sick of missing all the fun. I kicked him out of our house and told him to go home.
That doesn't make what happened to Jeffrey your fault.
Don't tell that to the Ronsons.
It's spoken to me or to my parents since 19.
I need 6,000 coins here.
The child who lost her face.
I'm not sure it was wise to snoop around the Sultan's palace, Matthew. What if that guard could... What are you two doing? Get out of here. Eek!
We got nothing from the bureau. No unexpected guests, no changes in anyone's statement. Just a lot of people pointing their fingers.
Phew, that was close. Did you have time to grab anything before the guard kicked us out of the palace, Matthew? Spoon? Okay, well, if you want to collect a sample of that clear substance on it, I'm not going to argue. And a phone? You're right, there's a picture of the victim. We need to unlock it, stat.
Where are you from?
New York City.
You're a long way from home. He must have heard you're going to kill me next week. Nothing like waiting till the last.
Well, let's find out what Mahmoud has to say first. Sheriff Matthew, I demand you explain your presence in my country. My police are entirely capable of investigating that peasant's murder without you foreigners sticking your noses in. With all due respect, Your Highness, how can we be sure that you didn't order Hamza's assassination? I mean, he was leading a protest to overthrow you. There's always some impudent so-and-so who wants to take my power. Imagine if I assassinate them all because of that. Nobody is left. No, I invited Hamza to the palace and offered him a fancy job as minister. You know, to make him quiet. These protesters always say that they want change, but I know what they really want. Fast cars and buckets of money. And how did Hamza react to your proposition? He said he wanted to think about it, but he planned to accept. They always do. Anyway, I am tired of this exchange. You are dismissed, Sheriff Matthew.
Listen to me carefully. I never touched Jeffrey Ronson.
Then how did you know where he was buried?
What are you talking about?
Gold spoon first.
Why'd you send me these? You think it's funny?
Next Friday, they're gonna fry me like a piece of bacon. Tell them to send you these out.
So we find Jeffrey, the case stays alive.
Okay.
So do you.
But you don't understand.
Clear substance. You collected a sample of that clear substance on the gold spoon you found in the Sultan's palace? I don't fancy waiting hours for Lars's results just for a spoon. Let's put this substance under the microscope.
Any luck?
Clear substance.
So I guess he's gonna take it to his grave.
Jeffrey was 7. Boy Biggs killed him over, right?
Yeah, he was 12.
So were the other kids that Biggs molested. Young, invested boys, not little kids.
Well, maybe Biggs never got caught with the smaller ones. Younger the victim, less likely they are to talk.
Guess he's been drawing big baseball.
Okay.
On Vivian Tate.
Jeffrey Ronson's old housekeeper.
Biggs' old girlfriend. She's been living off the Biggs gravy train for the last 9 years. And then you kick, she's back to paying her own way.
That's a good reason to keep the ex-boyfriend alive. If Vivian knew where Biggs buried Jeffrey, she could have...
There we are. Omar Bahir. What did you find out about that clear substance from the gold spoon you picked up in the Sultan's palace, Matthew? The substance was saliva from Omar Bahir?
The rest for yourself.
Right, he's the professor you met in Morocco, Matthew. Wasn't he in contact with tribe leaders there? And now he's in cahoots with the Sultan?
Killed your boss's son.
I wonder what he's doing here. I agree, we need to see if this professor has any words of wisdom for us. Let's talk to Omar.
Couldn't prove it until you led us to Jeffrey's body. I couldn't leave you anywhere. You sent me this map to his grave. Tell me. What happened?
Guilty conscience get to you?
About his relationship with the Sultan?
Your way. Vivian Tate. What the hell? You're under arrest.
Sheriff Matthew, what a pleasure to see you. I was about to go for a spot of fishing when you summoned me. Let's cut the pleasantries, Mr. Bahir. We're here to ask you about your relationship with the Sultan. What business would a professor have with a dictator? That's a good question, Sheriff Matthew. The Sultan contacted me knowing that my field of expertise is tribal strategy. The Sultan and I had a heated debate about the current political situation over a bowl of couscous. Right, but the situation here has nothing to do with tribes. It's just common people fighting for justice. How could you possibly have helped? I only did what the Sultan asked of me. I'm working to the best of my abilities to make sure everyone gets out of this situation alive, Sheriff Matthew. Well, Hamza clearly didn't. Yes, a terrible shame. I just hope this awful murder does not push the situation to a breaking point. It will only fuel the protesters' rage.
And Charlie's treatment unlocks an old memory.
Mr. Jughead.
Television original series, Saving Hope, Tuesday, 11:10 Central. Positively entertaining. Only Wendy's makes a deal. Feel it.
I better make sure.
Our new 4 for $4. $4
Oh no.
cheeseburger, nuggets, fries, and a drink.
BRA,
That's fresh, never frozen beef, sizzling bacon.
TGN.
Introducing the Kia Holidays on Us sales event. Get a Kia Optima
You unlocked the victim's phone and found out the Sultan's palace like a pro, Matthew. And look, Hamza was following the overthrow the Sultan hashtag on Buzzer. I still can't believe the protesters have been using a social networking site to promote their... What's that? Someone posted a photo of the victim's body at the Oasis? You're right. My God. My God, we need to get this phone to Elliot, quick.
Watching football together is great, but I think women
with your man after the game? It's nice.
12 hours. I'll get it in the morning.
About half of men over 40 have some degree of
I'll get the results in the morning. So for now, this is Matthew. See you then. Okay. Okay, folks, it's Matthew. We are back. Let's get the results of the smartphone. Did you figure out who posted that photo of our crime scene Matthew found on the victim's phone, Elliot? Yeah, I talked to Angela, and the victim's heart had barely stopped beating when this photo was posted, which means it was taken by Hamza's killer. You're looking pale, kid. You feeling okay? I guess. I just didn't think I'd be so affected by seeing a real-life dead body. It's not as cool as I'd imagined. We won't tell anyone that you're not as tough as you look, kiddo. So the killer took this photo. Did you find out anything about them? No, the info they used to create their Crush the Protest account on Buzzer was all fake. But I'm going to keep an eye on Buzzer just in case the... Wait, Matthew, the Crush the Protest account just posted again. But this time from the protest square. Quick, let's head back to the protest square, Matthew. We might be able to catch our buzzing killer. Goes my inspiration on this. Handbag, torn pieces. Oh man, I can't see anyone. The killer must have gone. Did you grab any clues, Matthew? Some torn pieces? Better put them back together then. And a handbag? I don't think it's your style, Matthew, but feel free to look through it. I'll grab a few stars, I'll be back. Okay, I got me a few stars. I'm up to 20. Let's examine the torn paper. It's Benjamin Scott again. Matthew, this photo shows Benjamin holding a gun. How did he even get his hands on a weapon like that? The message underneath reads, I am tough enough. Just who was he trying to convince? Matthew, we need to talk to Benjamin about this photo. About the photograph found at the square. Benjamin, what do you think you're doing carrying weapons around? You're not my mother. You can't boss me around. I told Sheriff Matthew before, I want to take part in the fight for change. There's a huge difference between protesting and actually taking up arms, Benjamin. And what did you mean by, I am tough enough? That was a message to Hamza. I told him I wanted to join his protest movement, but he said I didn't have what it takes, that I wasn't tough enough to kill for the cause. I was going to post a picture on Buzzer, but I was worried Hamza might not see it, so I decided to give it to him instead. Are you sure you didn't take it a step further and prove your worth by killing Hamza? Of course I didn't. The point was to get Hamza to accept me. To be honest, the gun wasn't even real. It was plastic. A plastic rifle? Stick around, Benjamin. Matthew will have more questions for you later. And for heaven's sake, do yourself a favor and stop trying to play with the big boys. Handbag now. Just got the 9 in time. A pill bottle for Fatima Busefi. So you finished rooting around in that handbag you picked up at the protest square, Matthew. You found a pill bottle prescribed to Fatima. Oh right, that's Hamza's widow who we met earlier. Well, we better send this to Lars to find out what the pills are for. I just hope he's not too busy mummifying things. For my sake, me too. Okay, 12 hours. I'll get the remaining stars, so for now, this is Matthew. See you then. Alright folks, we're back. Let's get the results of the pill bottle.
You're an only child, aren't you, kids? Cora.
Lars, you'd better have taken a look at the pill bottle Matthew found at the protest square. Work comes before your personal projects, you know. Of course I did. The pills in the bottle you found are your standard Terral L-glutamic acid pills. Terral what? Terral L-glutamic acid, otherwise known as folic acid. It's a supplement recommended for pregnant women to prevent birth defects. So Fatima is pregnant? I agree, Matthew. We need to talk to her about this.
I thought we shredded all these.
About her pregnancy?
It's not even real.
Fatima, why didn't you tell us you were pregnant? You were pregnant. Sheriff Matthew found your folic acid pills. Sorry, let me put my phone away. I was on buzzer. You were saying? Sheriff Matthew was asking you why you failed to tell us about your pregnancy. Oh, well, what difference does it make, Sheriff Matthew? Well, considering your husband and the father of your child has just been murdered, and who does he have to blame except himself? When I first told him I was pregnant, I begged him to stop taking part in the protest to protect our child. But Hamza threatened to hurt me if I tried to stop him. He said he didn't care if he was risking his son's life by exercising his right to protest. But what about my unborn son's right to have a father? Now I'll have to act as both parents as he grows up. I'll have to be the mother who prepares him couscous, but also the father who takes him fishing. Well, Fatima, I just hope your frustration with Hamza's involvement in the protest didn't lead you to put an end to it yourself.
You didn't peg him for a lifelong bureaucrat.
Figured he'd worn a few hats.
The situation here is pretty bleak, Matthew. We've spoken to Fatima, who claims her husband threatened her and was prepared to risk the life of their unborn child. And it doesn't get any better with Benjamin, a mixed-up kid with a toy gun who has no place in the Sahara. And as for the Sultan, Matthew, we just had word. The protesters have organized a march in memory of the victim, and the Sultan is threatening to open fire on them.
Been concerned with the danger.
Wow.
Having the wrong person at the top. But you're not alone.
We'll get to Chapter 3 in a few minutes. So for now, this is Matthew. See you then. Okay, folks, it is Matthew. We are back, and we're now going to start Chapter 3 of Killing Spring. Let's recap, Matthew. We've heard nothing about the sword, and we've made almost no headway with our investigation into Hamza's murder. We've got a pregnant widow and a kid with a toy gun. Matthew, we just had word. The protesters have organized a march in memory of the victim, and the Sultan is threatening to open fire on them. It'll be a massacre if you don't do anything, Matthew. What? The Sultan has lost his mind. The protesters are convinced that the Sultan is behind Hamza's death. It's given the protest movement a new lease of life. Well, I wouldn't be surprised if he did have something to do with this murder, Matthew. We need to go back to his palace ASAP. If there's evidence which ties into Hamza's death, it'll be there. Besides, I'll bet he's so preoccupied with the protesters that we can just sneak right back in. Let's go back to the Sultan's palace now. Okay. Torn pieces. Newspaper article. Okay. Quick, what did you find in the Sultan's palace, Matthew? Innocent people's lives will be at stake if we don't wrap this case up soon. Some torn pieces. Better put them back together then. There's no time to lose. And check out this faded newspaper article. The headline reads, Protest leader murdered. Hamza Bousefi shot dead. We need to retrieve the faded parts. You also grabbed a locked camcorder? Well, nobody decodes these things like you, Matthew. I'll get to it right now. Arrest warrant. Attempted assassination of the Sultan. That piece of paper you restored is an arrest warrant, and the crime reads attempted assassination of the Sultan. So someone tried to kill the Sultan? Matthew, let's grab your dusting brush. We need to know who it was. Examine the arrest warrant. Hamza Bousefi. Well, that led nowhere. The arrest warrant for attempted assassination of the Sultan was put out for Hamza Bousefi, and the verdict reads death by firing squad. So the Sultan wanted Hamza dead. Well, maybe that's exactly what happened. The Sultan could have had Hamza executed elsewhere and then moved the body to the oasis to make it look like a random act of violence. We better talk to the Sultan, Matthew. He needs to explain this arrest warrant. About the victim's death sentence. We found this arrest warrant for Hamza Bousefi at your palace. You conveniently forgot to mention that Hamza had tried to kill you. You know, I respect the people's right to protest. Why would they not be jealous of royalty? But Hamza, that ungrateful peasant, he took it too far. I was out fishing when that crazy man threw some paint at me. My guards chased him, but he got away. Hamza threw some paint at you? But this arrest warrant says he tried to kill you. You ordered for him to be executed because of some paint? I am losing patience with you, Sheriff Matthew. Throwing paint, attempted assassination, it's one and the same. And trying to kill the Sultan is punishable by death. The Sultan does not forgive. And Sheriff Matthew does not give up on finding a killer. And on that note, if we find one more protester dead, you'll be in serious trouble. Report by Thomas Cox. The newspaper article about our victim's death was written by Thomas Cox? That doesn't bode well. The article says that the Sultan finally took matters into his own hands and killed the leader of the protesters. Dang, I do have my suspicions about the Sultan, Matthew, but I'm sure Thomas can't support his claims. When there's questionable journalism, there's usually a wolf news reporter behind it. We better squeeze some information out of that so-called reporter. Let's go talk to Thomas. About the article he wrote about the victim? Oh, it's you again. Sorry, but I don't really have time for this. I'm busy posting updates about the protest movement to Buzzer, and then I've got a reporter's dinner lined up. We're going for couscous. You will make time for Sheriff Matthew. We found your newspaper article about Hamza's murder. Where's your evidence that he was killed by the Sultan? You know how it is, Carmen. I write whatever sells. I don't bother offering proof. I'd even write about my fishing trips if I thought people would buy it. In fact, the article is making headlines all over the USA, and now I'm in the running for a Pulitzer. You're not so special now, eh, Carmen? This is about more than winning a prize, Thomas. The situation here is already a powder keg, and you fabricated a story which could ignite the fuse. The protesters here know what they're getting themselves into. All I'm doing is reporting on the situation like any good journalist. Well, as Sheriff Matthews discovers you killed Hamza, the only place you'll be reporting from is a prison cell. Locked camera now. C380. Oh no. B5RY. Look at you go, Matthew! You unlocked that camcorder you picked up at the Sultan's Palace in a flash! All these files seem to be encrypted, though. You're right, we better get this camcorder to Elliot, stat! How long will this take? 9 hours? And I'll get the remaining stars, and we'll see for that. Alright folks, we're back. I'm actually going to speed this up right now. Kid, did you manage to decrypt the files on that camcorder Matthew found in the Sultan's Palace? Sure did. Take a look at this, Matthew. This is a call to arms. For too long we have allowed the Sultan to treat us like cockroaches that he can crush us at will. It's time to mobilize your wives and your children. Use them as cannon fodder if you must. Individual lives mean nothing in the struggle against tyranny. If they died, they will die as heroes. Whoa, Hamza really had no qualms about pushing his supporters to do everything possible to overthrow the Sultan. He was even ready to use women and children as cannon fodder. But this doesn't help move the investigation forward, Elliot. Is this all you've got? Of course not. I discovered that Hamza posted this video to his followers on Buzzer, and the first person to comment was Omar Bahir. Omar? That professor sure seems to get around. One minute he's getting chummy with rebel tribes in Morocco, the next he's schmoozing with the Sultan, and now he's in league with the protesters. Not exactly. Omar's comment reads, "Example is better than precept, Hamza." You're gonna need to walk me through this, kid. I searched online and found that it's an Arab proverb. Omar was telling Hamza to lead by example. So just what exactly was Omar's relationship with the protest leader, Matthew, I think it's high time we talk to him. Omar's relationship with the victim? Mr. Bahir, can you explain this comment you left on the video Hamza posted on Buzzer? Ah, you saw that, Matthew. Well, I admit that Hamza and I had some differences regarding his leadership of the protesters. Hamza was a coward. He was not fit to lead the protest movement. As you saw in the video, he did not hesitate to risk others' lives to further his cause. But when it came to risking his own life, he was nowhere to be seen. Aren't you supposed to be advising the Sultan, not fraternizing with his enemies? As I explained before, the situation here is extremely complicated. You couldn't possibly understand the history behind it. Well, your freedom will be history if Sheriff Matthew finds out you killed Hamza. We're on the home stretch, Matthew. We know the victim expressed his discontent by throwing paint at Sultan, and in retaliation the Sultan wanted him executed. And Omar clearly had qualms with Hamza's role as leader of the protesters, so perhaps he decided to take matters into his own hands. Matthew, we just heard that the Sultan has ordered for access to the crime scene to be restricted. He claims he's concerned that it'll become a pilgrimage site for the protesters. You need to get back there to sweep the oasis for any final clues, now. Okay, let's see what we got. Maracas, black piece. A wheel. A snake. Pile of rocks. Oh, I see the fish. Okay, a couple cards. Quick, what did you find at the crime scene, Matthew? A disassembled rifle? You'd better assemble it. This could blow the case wide open. And some rocks? Well, you know best, Matthew. Let's look through them, quick. I'll get a couple stars, I'll be right back. Okay, got some stars. Let's examine the disassembled rifle. There we are. Got the 8 in time. Whoa, you assembled that service rifle in a flash, Matthew. Did you learn that in the army or something? Anyway, this might well be our murder weapon. We gotta send this to Lars, stat. Fourth one. And right after this, I gotta head to bed. Oh, it's 9 hours. Even though I do have the cash to speed up the analyses, I don't really want to do that right now. Cigarette butt. What did you find in that pile of rocks you picked up from the crime scene, Matthew? A cigarette butt? You're right, the killer must have tried to hide this after they shot Hamza. We don't have time to figure out which of our suspects smoked, though. We need to get the cigarette butt to Lars, on the double. Okay, I'll let these two run their courses. So for now, this is Matthew. See you then.
Yes.
Alright folks, we're back. Let's get the results of the service rifle and put a killer behind bars. Lars, what did you find out about that gun Matthew picked up at the crime scene? Well, I carried out tests on various objects to study the bullet impact, and it was exactly the same as the head wound your victim suffered. I can therefore confirm that the service rifle is your murder weapon, Matthew. Trust Matthew to find the murder weapon. Can you tell us anything more about it? Using the type of weapon, the angle at which the bullet entered the victim's body and where the victim was standing, I managed to calculate the shooter's height. And I can confirm that your killer measures 5 foot 6 inches. Great work, Lars. So now I know the killer's height. I bet they'll be feeling pretty small once you put them behind bars, Matthew.
Here's a depiction of this tiny character of a 1931 novel. Gary.
What is that?
cigarette butt now. I have to say, Matthew, this cigarette butt you found on the crime scene is a smoking hot lead. We don't have time for jokes, Lars. Tell us what you discovered. Well, I managed to extract a sample of saliva from the cigarette. I didn't have time to do a full DNA profile, but I studied the chromosomes. And I can tell you that your killer is male. So now we know we're looking for a male killer. Well, you won't be feeling so macho once you've got him in handcuffs, Matthew. You collected all the evidence you need to arrest Hamza Bousefi's killer, Matthew. Let's do this. Okay, it's not the victim's wife. It's the American journalist, Thomas Cox. I'm pretty sure. Uh-huh. Thomas Cox, you're under arrest for the murder of Hamza Bousefi. How could you? Don't be ridiculous, Carmen. I'm a journalist, not a killer. Then how do you explain that Sheriff Matthew found your fishing hook covered in the victim's blood at the crime scene? A lot of people visit the Oasis to go fishing. Anyone could have left that hook there. You know, killing someone is disgusting enough, but posting a photo of the victim's dead body on Buzzer? There's no proof that account belongs to me. Besides, social media accounts get hacked all the time. Stop lying, Thomas. Sheriff Matthew also found your DNA on the cigarette butt you tried to hide at the crime scene. You're done for. Alright, you got me. I killed Hamza, but it was an accident, I swear. How do you accidentally shoot someone in the head? I invited Hamza to the Oasis to interview him about the protest movement and how far he was prepared to go to overthrow the Sultan. Hamza was showing me the rifle he bought. I took it to get a feel for it when I accidentally discharged it. I panicked when I saw Hamza was dead, but then I realized there was a silver lining. I made it into the scoop of the year by claiming that the Sultan killed him. You're disgusting, Thomas. Instead of honoring the dead, you use Hamza's death for your own vile purposes. Oh, loosen up, Carmen. We can't all have a nose for a good story like you do. Some of us have to fabricate our news. Well, you better fabricate a better story than that before your trial, Thomas. You're under arrest. Thomas Cox, you stand accused for killing Hamza Bousefi. How do you plead? Guilty, Your Honor, but I got a killer story out of it, pun intended. You turned the death of an innocent man into a news scoop? Sure did, Your Honor. At Wolf News, they encourage us to be the best of the best, even if that does mean fabricating stories. Well, Mr. Cox, I really don't like you or what you stand for, but since your crime wasn't premeditated, the International Court hereby sentences you to 10 years in prison. Guess that gives me plenty of time to think up my next few articles. Perhaps I could do a report on prison conditions. Matthew, congratulations for successfully putting Thomas Cox behind bars. But we're still no closer to getting to the bottom of the chief's murder. We just know that the Sword is responsible and that they've been busy uniting local groups to drive foreigners out of the region. And in this climate of social unrest, who knows what someone like the Sword could get up to? Our only option is to keep investigating, so let's go. Taking a look at the other ones. Benjamin Scott cleared from the start again. Sultan Mahmoud cleared when he doesn't use Buzzer. I doubt he would, because he lives in the palace like that. I think social media is kind of Greek to him. Omar Bahir almost made the cut, but he surpasses 5'6". Fatima Bousefi, not male. It was the journalist. So I'll see you guys for Crossing the Desert 3. Alright, Crossing the Desert 3 now. Matthew, good good job arresting Thomas Cox and preventing the Sultan from carrying out a massacre of his own people. But now that's out of the way, we can get back to the real reason we came here. The Chief's killer, the Sword, is still out there gathering rebel groups to expel all foreigners in the region. But we have no idea why, or what it's got to do with their motive for killing the Chief. You know, now that I think about it, who better to help us figure out what's going on out here than a reporter who sticks his nose into everybody else's business? Exactly, Matthew. If anyone can tell us something about the Sword, it has to be Thomas. Sheriff Matthew, Sultan Mahmud I demands your presence at his palace, immediately. Matthew, I got a serious case of deja vu here. I intended to make the Sultan wait a little. I'm sick of him ordering us around. But it's up to you, Matthew. What do you want to do first? Question Thomas or see what the Sultan wants? Oh, let's see what the Sultan wants. Sheriff Matthew, we have a serious situation to contend with. Wait a second. We? What does the Bureau have to do with your problems? You seemed perfectly happy to manage without us when Hamza was murdered. Sheriff Matthew should be grateful that I have not had you arrested for accusing our magnificence of murder. And as a sign of your appreciation, you will help us. My guards have reported an intruder in my palace. Normally they would find the culprit themselves, but they are very busy monitoring the protesters. So I require you to find the scoundrel who had the audacity to step foot into my home. And if we don't feel like helping you, then my guards are authorized to use lethal force if they find the culprit. We'll help you to avoid anyone getting hurt, Your Highness, but Sheriff Matthew is fining you for wasting police time. Come on, Matthew, let's check the Sultan's palace for clues as to who this intruder might be. Alright? Tablet. Camel, armor, pearl necklace, a heart, cigar box, laurel wreath, forehead, military cap, book, and flowers. Found a tablet in the Sultan's palace, but you were supposed to be looking for clues about the break-in. Surely an intruder would be more interested in stealing a tablet than leaving one behind? Oh, you're right. This does look exactly like Benjamin's tablet, which we found in the desert. That kid really needs to stop leaving his possessions lying around everywhere. Looks like he changed his password though. I'll let you unlock it, Matthew, but hurry. If Benjamin broke into the Sultan's palace, then we need to find him before the Sultan's guards do. Q80 and MBX, yep. Fatal error. Oh man, you managed to unlock Benjamin's tablet, but there's just an error message on the screen. We better send this tablet to Elliot, quick.
It only lasts about 2 hours. On top of that, it tends to be pricey. This small box
6 hours. What do you want now, Carmen? Can't you see I'm busy writing? I've set up my own prison newspaper.
That's for all today.
Great. We've actually come to ask you if you'd heard anything about an individual named the Sword during your investigation. The Sword, eh? Now that you come to mention it, I think I do remember something. What's in it for me if I tell you? You get to avoid having my fist in your face. Oh yes, I remember clearly now. One of the protesters I interviewed mentioned something about the Sword being the blade who will cut down the foreigners. I just ignored it at the time. Riddles don't make for good articles, you know. But then I heard the word crop up again during the protests. People whispering that the Sword had given them orders. I got the impression that this Sword individual was helping to orchestrate the protest movement. Well, that would fit with their agenda. One of the protesters' main arguments was that the Sultan is supported by the West, so it would make sense for the Sword to be looking to get rid of him. And if the Sword was in contact with the protesters, then maybe we can find some clues at the protest square. Let's go, Matthew. Investigate the protest square. Oh, I already see it. Torn pieces. Birdcage, Molotov cocktail. Drum, giraffe. There we go. You picked up some torn pieces from the protest square, Matthew? Well, you're the wizard putting them back together.
Industry experts say expect to see more and more home battery storage in the island as we move closer to 2045 100% renewable energy.
Now let's examine the torn pieces.
Legislation. Those folks with solar must have been today. The skies are pretty awesome. Canaries heading here at one point time to start finding any clouds. KBT before meteorologist Paul Lewis is here to show us what to expect tonight and beyond.
Did get off to a very slow start. Weather conditions being pretty quiet. Evening and overnight, as you can see, it's those mostly sunny conditions continue.
Honestly, Matthew, who'd rip up a whole wad of banknotes? And you're right, there's a little drawing of a sword, so the Sword must have written this message. I hate to state the obvious though, but the message is in Arabic, and my knowledge of the language is rusty at best. All I can read is Sombra. Perhaps it's another code name? We'll have to decipher the rest to figure it out. I agree, this is one for Tupan. Let's send the banknotes to him.
As we take a look at what we're expecting for the next few hours, partly the night conditions overall, with increasing clouds for those winter spots as the night goes on. Light east-southeastern winds up to about 5-15 miles an hour.
9 hours. I may likely speed this one up, but we'll see what happens. So for now, this is Matthew. See you then. Alright folks, we're back. Let's get the results of the tablet now. Did you manage to fix the error on Benjamin's tablet, kiddo? It was a piece of cake, Matthew. I'm surprised you didn't do it yourself. Anyway, I had a look at Benjamin's emails. I mean, I thought he sounded like a pretty cool guy, you know, telling his parents he's in Florida and all that. But it turns out he's got the perfect family life back in London. His parents are worried sick about him. I can't believe anyone would run away from that. I didn't know you were so keen on family life, Elliot. Well, I would be if my family didn't suck so much. If I had a family like Benjamin's, I'd never leave them. So if you don't mind, Matthew, I'd like to come with you to see if I can talk some sense into him. That's very mature of you, kid. It's nice to see you show a little concern for others. Alright, don't get too mushy. Come on, Matthew, let's go talk to Benjamin. Talk some sense into Benjamin. Hey Benjamin, Sheriff Matthew and I just wanted to return your tablet we found at the Sultan's palace. If you don't mind us asking, how did you manage to lose it there? Oh, I've been dying to tell someone about it. I broke into the Sultan's palace to attack him. But then, well, it's kind of embarrassing, actually. I lost my nerve. I chickened out and ran away. No, that was the smart part, Benjamin. You know, the Sultan has had people killed for less, right? But the Sultan deserves to die. The people here are suffering, and I can relate to that. I mean, it's like that time my mother called me her snuggle bug at the school gate. All my mates heard it. And my parents insist on coming to all my cricket matches to cheer me on. It's mortifying. I don't know why they can't just leave me alone. You should try having parents who shipped you out to boarding school age 7 because you were interfering with their skiing holidays and who barely remember to call once a month. Besides, no matter how mortifying you think your parents are, it's not a patch on what the people here are experiencing at the hands of the Sultan. Whatever. Anyway, thanks for returning my tablet, Sheriff Matthew. I suppose you want a reward or something, so take this. See ya. And I'll go ahead and speed up the banknotes. DuPont, what have you got for us on the banknotes Matthew picked up at the protest square? Excuse me. The message was, in fact, addressed to your victim. It reads, Hamza, there's more where this came from if you help Sombra. And as the message was written on a wad of banknotes, I can only deduce that the money was sent as a bribe by the Sword. And what is Sombra, DuPont? Is it another code name? Malharusman. That I cannot tell you. I simply do not know. Not even my books could help me. Oh man, we've hit a dead end, Matthew. You're right, there is one person who might be able to shed some light on this message, the victim's widow. Let's go talk to Fatima. About the bribe her husband received. We're sorry to disturb you, Fatima, but we were wondering if you could help us. We need to know what exactly someone called the Sword was paying Hamza to do. Sheriff Matthew found the bribe he left at the protest square. The Sword? That's a name I hope never to hear again, Sheriff Matthew. If it wasn't for the Sword, Hamza might never have gotten himself killed by that journalist. So you knew your husband was in contact with the Sword, and you didn't even think to mention any of this while we were investigating his murder? There was no need, Sheriff Matthew. I knew it couldn't have been the Sword. Hamza did everything they asked of him. At first, Hamza refused the Sword's attempts to bribe him. He even ripped up the wad of cash the Sword offered him. But then the money just became too tempting. It was the Sword who was behind Hamza's radicalization. The Sword encouraged Hamza to take on the role of protest leader and to use any means possible to overthrow the Sultan. And what about Sombra? I'm afraid I've never heard the name, Sheriff Matthew. All I can tell you is that Hamza used to meet the Sword at the Oasis. Anyway, even if it won't bring him back, I'd like to thank you for solving Hamza's murder, Sheriff Matthew. So please, let me treat you to dinner. Oh, that was nice of her. Lush Oasis now. Oh, there it is. Banknote. Whistle. Battery. Shovel. Fishing net. Butterfly tent. There we go. You're right, Matthew. This banknote has a sword symbol on it, just like the one we found at the protest square. And there's a weird grayish substance on it. You better collect a sample, quick! I better get this done quickly. Great work, Matthew. You collected a perfect sample of that grayish substance you found on the banknote. This could be just the breakthrough we need. Let's put the substance under the microscope. Sorry guys, my tablet ran out of room, but let's examine the gray substance.
If you have Medicare,
Oh. A river sediment. The grayish substance from the banknote you picked up at the Oasis is sediment from a river? But there aren't any rivers around here. Let me see what else the microscope report says, Matthew. The sediment contains limestone, fine sand, silt, and clay. So we're going to Egypt. Wicked, dudes. And look, I finally finished my project. Lars, I've been looking for that chicken everywhere. We were going to have it for dinner. Well, let me at least take a picture for my scrapbook. The kids will love it. Jeez. Guys, hold up. What did you mean about Egypt, Lars? That sediment you described, Matthew, it comes from the part of the Nile River which runs through Egypt. So the sword must have ties to Egypt, Matthew. This is just the information we needed. Matthew, I hear your talk with Benjamin didn't go quite as planned. But on the bright side, you've made progress with your investigation into the sword. We've learned that the sword has ties to someone or something called Sombra, though we have no idea what it is yet. It could be a person, an organization, anything. But even better, thanks to the substance on the banknote, we know that the sword has links to Egypt. There's no time to lose, Matthew. Our best chance of figuring out what Sombra is and why the sword killed the chief is to follow them to Egypt. Well, I would have gone on the next case last night, but it's okay. But fortunately, on the Daily Get, I ended up with a Wheel of Fortune and a complete meal.
Of course, sir. Do you follow us on LinkedIn? I'm just kidding.
Alright, I'll see you guys for case 10.